So I'm back here with a new review, and today it's going to be the Rolex 126067. And if you're wondering what that is, it's the new behemoth Rolex DeepSea Challenge. So the first thing I want to express and really drive home is that I can't say this enough on how the size of this watch does not do justice in pictures. Whatever you think you've seen all this time in pictures, whether it's on social media or even in one of my videos where I talked about it, it doesn't do enough justice on how big this watch actually is until you're holding it in your hand. I don't know, it's crazy. It's like usually the camera might make things look bigger, but in this case, it just doesn't really give you the depth perception that you need to really grasp how large this watch is. Right off the bat, I mean, everybody that I've showed this watch to, it's almost been a novelty thing for the past 3 days. Everybody I say, come here, you gotta check this watch out. I open the box and their immediate reaction is, holy sh**, that thing is big. And big it is. With 50 millimeters, I mean, I'm wondering, what is it that caused them to go that big with this model? Pretty much Rolex just wanted to make the deepest diving watch ever, of all time. And of course, in true Rolex fashion, they did. So one of the first things that came to my mind during the whole process of this watch, when you see it released, when you see them talking about it, and when you finally have it in your hands is, why on earth did they make it this big? I'm not really quite sure. I wouldn't doubt that there's a possibility that it has to do something with really what they're trying to do here. This watch isn't 50 millimeters or isn't this big just because Rolex felt like making a watch this huge. This watch has a purpose and a tool. Whether any of us are actually gonna ever go 11,000 meters under the sea, some of us might not even be going 1,000 meters under the sea, but you know that this watch can do it, and that's part of the novelty of it. This is taking the whole expression of a tool watch to a whole nother level. And I'm wondering if, in that pursuit to be able to make this watch do what they want it to do, because of every single little engineering factor, did it have to be this big? Maybe they had no other choice. When you look at the DeepSea Special, which sold at auction for $2 million, I mean, we're talking about a really old vintage watch. The case was a lot smaller, but the glass also stood out this far. So obviously that was a different design, but maybe just to get everything that they had to do in here, they needed to make it this size. Because personally, I think that this watch should have been 46 millimeters max. Hey, even 47, maybe even 48. But when you get to 50 millimeters, it's when you really realize how large this watch is. I mean, it completely is bigger than anything we've seen lately. The only other thing I could compare to a watch this size would be these out of this world, like I've said before, Invicta Transformer watches. The difference is that they don't have the proven traditional classic look of a sub. All the other brands have copied it over the years. But you can't deny how big it is. So the next thing about the DeepSea Challenge that everyone immediately realizes when you pick it up is how light it is. I mean, you hear that it's made out of titanium, but you don't think it's gonna be this light. Had this watch been stainless steel, I would say if it fell off your nightstand, chances are it's gonna break your tile instead of the watch. The fact that it's titanium makes actually the watch very balanced and light for somebody that can actually wear this watch. And I actually have shown it to a couple guys that are large enough with a big enough wrist to wear this thing. One of the things that I noticed is that because it's so light, it appears to also be very balanced. A lot more balanced than the DeepSea, which personally from experience, I find it very top heavy. I know it doesn't make much sense, but if you actually wear the watch, you realize that it wants to tend to lean over to that side always. This watch is actually very balanced, believe it or not. And for its size, if somebody wanted to wear it, probably wouldn't be as bad as someone with, for example, my frame or my wrist wearing a DeepSea. Another thing about the finish of this titanium is they chose to not do the sides polished. A little strange, but I guess they wanted something different. For me personally, not that I want this watch to have any bling, but a little bit of shine would have also enhanced the look. Another thing that it has is the very pronounced chamfered edges, which I kind of like that on the case. It kind of looks more like the old school look as before, which I do enjoy. So let's move on to the dial of the watch. The dial is a matte black, which looks good, but I wonder what it would have looked like to have a little bit of shine, you know, with a glossy black dial. Personally, maybe that would have been the move for me, but it looks nice. Another thing that you realize with this watch, if you haven't taken a double take, is that it has no date. Clearly has no date. And what the heck would you need a date for? This is the type of watch that you'd be using diving. Looks like you're not gonna be there a long time, so why on earth would you need a date? I mean, I know this sounds ridiculous. I get it. These things that I say about the date, but it is the truth. At this point, why else would you even want to add a date at this point? I mean, what's the need? So the last two things I'm going to mention about the actual physical watch is that, one, this is the biggest Rolex crown that I have personally ever seen. Crown is huge, okay? Even when you grab it in your hand, you can't even believe it, how easy it is to manipulate and close it. And two is that I realized that on the case back, they went away with the design that they had on the previous DeepSea. Previous DeepSea had the two-part case back. This one being all titanium, they made it all one single piece, which doesn't really bother me or not, but I do like the touch that they have in the back where it says the Mariana Trench, which is the deepest part of our ocean. So let's move on to the reality of this piece. The reality of this piece is, who is this for? With a $26,000 retail, and by the time you pay your taxes and all that, you're gonna be 28 and change out the door. Who is this watch really for? Think about it. I've had a couple guys come and look at this watch and say, I want it so bad. They have put it on their wrist, they have said it's a monster, they have said they love it, and although for me, initially, when this watch came out, it was a shocker. And I said, why on earth would they do this? What is the need? It's already done. And when you see somebody else look at the watch, try it on their wrist and say they love it, I mean, why not? You know, this whole thing is about watches and the hobby. It's not just about making videos nowadays, how the trends is that everything's about the watch business instead of being really about the watch hobby. If somebody likes this watch, hey, it is what it is, man. I mean, the guy's sitting there with all this joy saying he loves the watch. And I think to myself, oh, why the f not? If he likes it, he likes it. It is what it is. This watch is gonna be for the guy that it really sparks that energy inside him and wants this big piece. Once upon a time, I bought that DeepSea. You've heard me say that story before, where I traded a flawless, unworn V-Serial bezel engraved with card, open, for a DeepSea. I thought it was the best deal I ever did. Then I realized that it's maybe that can happen to this person that buys this watch. Or maybe not, because there's a lot of people out there that have a DeepSea and enjoy it. It might be big for me. I might have my reservations about the model, but people like it. But besides that, one of the real questions that I ask about this watch, and some of the things that makes me really curious is, will this be a collector's item? And that's the part that really gets me. After having this watch for 4 days in my office and showing it to everybody and just seeing everybody's reaction, I wonder, maybe that's what this watch is. Maybe it will be a short run. Whichever ones are out, came out. Whoever got them, got them. Maybe that's what this watch is all about. It's having it in your watch collection where you're talking to your watch collecting friends and you just bring it out and show it to them and freak them out. It's, in one way, I kind of understand the 50mm shocker factor, because when you see that deep sea special from way back with that giant bulging glass, that thing was a shocker. So maybe that's what they wanted. Maybe what they wanted is this ridiculously looking shocker piece that at the end of the day, maybe it's just meant to be put away in the box and just show it to people as a novelty item, you know, like, hey, check this out, look what I got. Bam, oh my God, the challenge, it's so ridiculous. Maybe that is the topic. I don't know. But something tells me that as ridiculously big, bulky, clunky, you name it, whatever you want, this watch in the long term may be a collector's item, and the chances are looking good. Now, very different than perhaps the Shaquille O'Neal watch from Audemars Piguet, or the Terminator watch, the big one, the Arnold. Two huge watches, the Shaq being the biggest one. Okay, then you got the Legacy, also big, which people love these pieces, by the way, but those pieces, maybe because they're attached to an actual person or a celebrity, maybe years later they didn't age so well and didn't stand the test of time in the collector world. Maybe this being the ultimate tool watch, ultimate not being the one that you want to wear every day, maybe this one will be a total different case and stand the test of time, totally different than those oversized Shaq and Arnold watches. I mean, with today's market price for this piece, which is $39,000, which that can either go up or go down, we don't know yet. But I would say it's pretty much right now from the brand, the ultimate conversation piece. What if they made less of these than the rainbow? That would be crazy, right? Just saying. I mean, it's pretty much the biggest and most ridiculous Rolex you can buy, and that could be maybe a good thing, you know? Some people want that type of attention or collectability. Well, the one thing that I saw about it originally was it was so big and so light it felt fake. Just did. Which is also going to possibly be a problem, because when China gets a hold of this thing, we already know what's going to happen. So with the retail of about $28,000 out the door and almost $40,000 in the gray market, I guess the real question is, what do you think about the new DeepSea challenge? And if you like this video, like and share. Also, subscribe to my YouTube channel.